Hi, and welcome to the Five Spheres of Fit. I am Sabrina, the president, and I'm here with Noel, the founder. The Five Spheres is a lifestyle strategy that constantly evolves with you. Your five spheres are the physical, the mental, the financial, the social, and the educational spheres. We're here to show you the interplay between your spheres and emphasize the importance of finding balance. Hi, Noel.
Hi, Sabrina.
So in January, we're now April. In January, you and I went to the retreat of an organization called Wonders and Worries. It's a beautiful nonprofit. And I currently sit on the board here in San Antonio. And what we did was a 1.5 hour retreat for them, or a workshop, and about the five spheres of fit. So tell us more about what we did.
Well, first off, I hope that everyone enjoys our new space here. We're exploring a new podcast space. So this is our first attempt at this one here. Getting to the event, Sabrina, I think when we put it together, we were so excited to not just talk about the five spheres, but really like live it in front of an audience. I've been excited about this for so long, and getting together with Wonders and Worries was like it felt like our first opportunity to like show off the five spheres. And it felt to me like, I know there were moments there where I might not have been like my full self. I guess a little bit of nerves talking about it because I wanted it to be so perfect. But then I realized there was this moment, like this aha moment where I was like, just talk about how I've implemented five spheres in my own life. And so we shared like personal stories. And I think what resonated was people kind of looked at us and were like, oh, wow, these guys are roughly our age. They're professionals as well. And they're implementing this strategy and literally using it on a daily basis to not only improve their professional life, but probably more importantly, like our personal life. So it was such a great experience. We got lots of questions, wonderful feedback.
Yeah.
And then the games that activities that we did was just the whole event was just such a neat interaction with others to share this profound five spheres strategy.
I agree with you. One of our friends is the development director there, and she came and told me we gave them a break, and she came and told me, she's like, this is going so well. And I was like, well, how do you know? I mean, I feel like it's going great. Yeah. And she said, well, a lot of these people don't talk. Even in Zoom meetings, they don't really participate. So to see them participate, and, one of the activities was coming up with scenarios for each sphere on how the organization can implement that into the workday. Yeah. So, social sphere was maybe once a month have a gathering, of all the employees, like a game night. Yep. The physical sphere was going for walks. And then you can talk about, which is also impacting positively your social sphere. Absolutely. And mental sphere. So we talked about the interplay and how we can just giving them that visual of how that works. And what I found so important was, you have a professional setting. This is their professional, career. And we're talking to their executive director, where if you implement this strategy for your employees, not only are you helping them personally, but it's spilling over into their professional life.
Sure. And worker productivity is like at the heart of, every major company looking to do well. And how they go about that, I think, is really the space that, a lot of these companies now are finding themselves in. And they're doing things like providing benefit packages beyond, 401k and health plans. What mental health tools and resources are we providing to our employees? The five spheres of fit, to me, falls directly into that space where we're providing the very foundation, actually, where employees can actually go and say, okay, well, I want to work on my social sphere. I want to work on my financial sphere beyond my work here. And just the opening of the eyes to all the potentialities in your life in those five spheres has been incredible. And you could see, and I don't know if you remember this, but like in some of the breakout sessions when they were at the tables, like coming up with ideas, everyone shared an idea. Like, to Jess's point, like it wasn't like one person was doing all the talking. It's like they all felt like, man, I have a voice. And it wasn't like we broke them up into groups specific to their sphere. So one table did physical, one mental, and so on and so forth. But you could see that they were talking about the physical sphere when they're coming up their ideas, but then they're like, oh, but that also is social sphere. Like we could go for walks during the day and talk about our work, but do it outside the office. And oh my gosh, that gets us out together, talking to each other. And I'm like, that's exactly what we
Right.
wanted to have
And not
happen.
only that they have a voice, do they realize that wow, I really want to focus more on
Yeah,
my
yeah,
financial
yeah,
sphere. I really want to
yeah,
focus more on my educational sphere. And it was so easy to come up with
yeah,
ideas that you knew the resources at the
yeah,
organization are
yeah,
there.
yeah.
It's not difficult to provide those resources to your
Yeah, yeah.
employees.
This is that foundation. And the other thing I thought was so great was I think everyone sort of dropped that proverbial curtain and they were like, I'm going to be vulnerable in this space. I'm going to talk about what my challenges were. And I thought that was pretty neat because a lot of the folks I don't think were anticipating hearing from each other about some of their challenges. And that's the beauty of the 5 spheres. We sort of open up these channels for people to have discourse, and each other is a resource. So
Right.
I may know something, Sabrina, that I'm doing that's working for me. And if I share that with you, maybe that helps you in some way, maybe not in the same way, but it'll help you in some other way, or, open your eyes to, no, I never considered that. I never thought about the importance of my, social sphere health to being a better employee.
I loved how vulnerable you were that day. When someone sees you, they see a very strong, smart, happy, put together guy. And for the most
Awesome.
part, you are. But we showed your scores. What we did was we gave each individual in the organization a sheet that said, what to consider in each sphere and then how to rate themselves. And you showed your ratings for each sphere. And in your mental sphere, you scored it pretty low.
I think that took
People were all
everyone by
like,
surprise.
yeah, especially, you didn't know majority of the people there.
Just one.
Yeah, just
Yes.
one actually.
Yeah.
Yes. And so even she was a little taken aback by that because I didn't realize you go through stuff. The difference is that, yes, you go through challenges in your mental sphere, but you are constantly working on
Yeah.
it. And that's what
And
the
that's what-
five spheres is. You and I, people will tell us, wow, you always seem you guys have everything put together. No, we
No.
constantly have challenges,
Yeah.
but we work on them. And what the five spheres helps us do is organize how we are going to tackle each challenge.
So we can evaluate it and then problem solve. As
Right.
we always say, organize, evaluate, problem solve. I think what's so important for anyone who's going to engage 5 spheres to realize is you're going to have all of these like momentary wins. And that's great because you're going to start stacking those wins, and it's going to build a lot of confidence in you and probably further the motivation, because if you've already started, you have that motivation to begin with. That being said, seeking out and finding where you're experiencing losses or you're not doing as well, it's just further evidence that you can be a better version of yourself. Mm-hmm. So I never looked in sharing, my challenges with my mental health, which you know very well about. I think I wanted people to see that, yeah, that's how it works. Like you never just check the box and then you're done. As we say, it constantly evolves with you. The 5 spheres constantly evolves with you, and you do want to be vulnerable because why not? Like, don't you want to figure out and be a better version of yourself?
Yeah.
And to do that, you have to drop the curtain and you got to put it out there and really go after it. And that is how you get to be the best version of yourself. And then you're constantly evolving as new challenges come your way. So I thought the event was neat. And that one single statement right there was that people's eyes were open to this holistic approach to life. And you could see some people, Sabrina, I think they felt like almost cornered, like in whatever strategy they were using, if at all. And when they saw 5 spheres, they're like, oh man, I never thought about my life. I think about my life. I'm at home and I'm at work.
Yes.
And that's how they think
but
of
of course
life.
It spills over. If you're having personal challenges, that's going to affect you at work. I mean, we spend most of our days working, right? Most of our hours awake are working. And so how could it not impact the other?
Of course.
So, yeah, I just was really excited. Then we got busy with our tax season. We have several tax offices. And now that it's the end of April, we could focus on this podcast and also, talking to schools and organizations as well.
It's our reset button.
It
And if
is.
you've taken a look at some of our other podcasts, we talk about utilizing life events, happenings in life as new reset buttons. And I say that so importantly, that those are so important because you give yourself the opportunity to wipe the slate clean. I can't tell you, Sabrina, how so many people that I talk to, whether it's the thousands of clients that we dealt with during tax season or friends or family, they get caught up in one thing happening in life and it stops them from being effective in other areas of life
Right.
because they're so hyper focused. And it's like you get these resets. So like the end of tax season for us was this new opportunity to be like, okay, what's next for us? Like what can we be working on? And like we get that reset. So
tell me
that's been
how
awesome.
you reset, because how I reset is, okay, tax season's done. So now I can focus on a multitude of other things, because that is our sole business that we do in 3.5 months. So we are hyper focused on that. But what I do is I break it down into the 5 spheres. Not only my things I need to do, but my challenges or goals are broken down in the 5 spheres. How do you do it?
So the first thing I'll say, and I hope everyone who's watching this and listening understands what I'm trying to get across here. I ask myself one question, and that one question is, am I evolving? That's it. I don't ask any other question. Like, am I evolving? And for me, the response to that is for each of the spheres. So physically, am I evolving? Now, I can tell you in no uncertain terms that during tax season, I don't work out nearly as much as I do outside. And so I don't even feel right. I don't like, so I know I'm like, okay, no, not really evolving there. I'm kind of like, I've plateaued or maybe I kind of taken a little dip because I'm not addressing that. So I think just having that honesty to ask yourself the question, am I evolving? And then go to those 5 spheres and check in with yourself. Like, what do you want to achieve now? And then you can go to the next step, Sabrina, which might be goal planning. Tax season's over. We might want to do this or X, Y, or Z, and then start goal planning around those. I think that's
So, okay, so to make it clear,
that's my approach. Ask myself, that opens the door. Am I evolving? That opens the door to, okay, now look at the spheres. And then from there, it's like, if I don't feel I'm evolving, start to think about what I might want to change. What do I need to do? I want to work out more in my physical sphere. I want to constantly improve in my mental spheres. Did I do my 15 minutes of decompression on a regular basis?
Were you doing that during tax season?
I was, yeah.
Okay.
And the beauty of that was,
how would you do it when you were at the office all day?
I'd cut out. So like, obviously I'm engaged throughout the day, but there are moments, and it might be if I had to go to the bathroom, and I would just kind of step back and go, be very, I would show a lot of gratitude. We had a good season, and I was very thankful that people were coming in. So I was taking a lot of the stress of like, are we going to make enough money, or is the business doing well? And just saying, I'm just very thankful today. Like, we had a lot of clients. So starting with little bits of just gratitude, and then starting to think about the bigger picture. Okay, what does next week look like? Am I prepared for that?
Okay.
And just trying to stay grounded mentally, because it was long. It was a long season. So
let me ask you, so you mentioned, during the tax season, you weren't working out as much, which obviously I saw, which I noticed. Just kidding. I'm joking. So how do you look at it when tax season's over? Do you say, okay, here's my new plan to get back into routine? Is that exactly what you do?
For me, and you know this, it's almost automatic. So April 15th hits, April 16th, like I'm back in the garage, and I do it with motivation. Hey, I gotta be strong for Sabrina and Naima. So the motivation is always there. And then I enjoy the mental decompression of being in my garage for an hour to maybe an hour and 20 minutes every day, just kind of building myself.
He actually starts off by cleaning the garage and blowing leaves all around the house. So that's his little routine. Yeah. And then a heavy workout.
And I will say this, I'm not a coffee drinker, which I guess comes as a surprise to a lot of people, but I started drinking black tea.
Decaf, black tea.
Decaf, of course, because I don't need the caffeine. And that's been a game changer only from the standpoint of it's created a routine.
Yeah.
So it's like, I get up now looking to go boil the water, make a tea, and start to enjoy it, and then start that mental decompression there.
I'm writing this down because you're talking about a healthy habit within your routine, but I'd like to have another episode about breaking
bad habits.
Yeah. And another one we're going to talk about coming up is hormones and perimenopause, because that's what I'm going through, because this lifestyle strategy is for all ages. And it's funny, from a business perspective, we were told, well, you need to have a niche group. Well, We don't, because this is a lifestyle strategy that can help everyone. And what Noel and I say is that if we are helping one person along the way, we're getting
Yeah.
the job done. And so I struggled during tax season with symptoms of perimenopause, and they were
Right.
pretty severe. But we're going to talk about how I overcame that in another episode,
Yeah.
because that was a
That'll be a
good
fun
one.
one. For us.
And one thing I did was I, this week, contacted a nutritionist, and she asked me, one of the first questions she asked me was, what is your morning routine like? And so let's talk about in another episode healthy routines and breaking bad habits.
For sure.
Okay.
That sounds awesome.
So what we wanted to get across here is that we did speak to an organization. We spoke to all their employees during their retreat, and we were helping them incorporate 5 spheres healthy habits within the organization. You know, how do we implement this? And it goes along with their workday.
Absolutely. And we sold them on, and this is important, and I mean this factually, we sold them on the concept of being a sponsor to your employees by providing them a foundation in which they can be the best version of themselves. Because when they're the best version of themselves, that makes them a better employee.
Of course.
So the synergy there was absolute. And I think what was really neat was seeing the leadership kind of look at each other like, okay, this is something we have clearly not been doing. But as they were watching all the tables in their breakout sessions and even in between, seeing their interactions and how they were discussing like their lives and how to be better, they were like, this is awesome. Like we're on to something.
And you know what's great? They weren't difficult things to implement, and they
No.
weren't costly.
Yeah.
So if you
I think there
are
was
a
zero
manager
costs. Yeah.
or you own a business and you would like us to come in and show how this can be done, just think about it. This is not costly to your employees. In fact, you have happier employees, you have more efficient employees that can only maximize profits.
Who become more vested. I think the other
Absolutely.
thing, if we were watching the news as of late in these last few years, or maybe even decade or so, the way people feel about work and the way they see the employer and that sort of disconnect that's happened over these, I think people are looking for a reason to be at a company or to be in a workspace. They're like, hey, you know what? They make me feel good about myself, or they're encouraging, or they're motivating, all of those things that you want to have happen when you're working somewhere. I think the 5 spheres has been so profound in doing that for some of the places that we visited. And certainly when you mentioned, you know, do we have a niche? You know, I think because of the general feeling of some folks, it has tended to be older folks, our age group and older, who look at the 5 spheres, and I won't say it all resonates with them, but they're less apt to implement. And maybe because, you know, they're already married to certain guideposts, like, oh, I only do it this way, or no, I've never done, I'm not going to make those changes, that's too hard, or whatever. But it's the young minds that are like, oh, like I've been so disorganized, I never had a strategy, I never had a plan of action. And all of a sudden they're like motivated, like, oh my God, I do want to look at my physical sphere, my mental sphere, my financial, and all this. And I think that's really great. But it is, to your point, everybody can benefit from 5 spheres. And I hope that everyone does, because we're so passionate about it, and it's a great strategy.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. This was fun to get back to it. And I look forward to doing this, hopefully on a weekly basis. And if anyone has any thoughts or
please reach out.
Yes.
Or podcast ideas.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Podcast ideas that they'd like us to talk about. We'd love to do that. And we'd love to have, you know, guests on as well. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Have a great day and live your best 5 spheres life.